we're approaching the end of the year. We're almost at TI. We've had new DPC rules this season. How have you been finding them? How's it affected you as a player?
I think this year compared to last year, it's a lot easier to get into basically the spots for TI. I feel like it's a lot more. Even now, like there's still teams that can get into TI, but it feels like the teams that are in got in pretty easily. So I would say, at least compared to last year, it's definitely like easier, or like it's less stressful for the top teams, because we felt like pretty early on that after the first major we were already pretty secured. We only got third place, and I think most teams were kind of cruising through the season. I mean, people are playing for the tournaments, but they're not playing to qualify for TI that much, because it feels pretty safe.
So you've not had pressure from events to events?
I don't feel like it. I feel like we were playing majors to win majors and not to qualify for TI. And I think most teams have the same thing. There's a few exceptions that, like Cr1t and OG, they had to get some results here later on, but most of the top teams have had it pretty easy.
Is that nice for you? Do you like it easy, or would you like a difficult life?
It's easy to say now that I don't like it easy, because we got there, and then we were pretty up there in points. So obviously I would like other good teams to not make it to TI. That would make sense. So for me, in this season at least, I think it's a bit too easy. Last season, obviously, we didn't make it because of roster changes, but still, I think this year was a bit too easy. I feel like it should be like a struggle to get to TI. Like it should be something like a big accomplishment, and this year it was not that hard.
Okay, and a lot of people have told me that the qualifiers immediately after majors, that would cause a lot of stress and difficulty. Have you found that difficult yourself?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely something that at least we hope gets changed, because it's just we made it to the final day of most of the majors, and then when you're on the final day and you travel the day after, and then you have to put qualifiers, you're already at a huge disadvantage compared to the teams that weren't even at the major from the region. Those teams have they've had a break, they've had time to practice. They're this is the thing they're playing for, while you're kind of winding down after a major and you have to go and play qualifiers. So it's pretty stressful as a team, and obviously you're gonna play worse after a big tournament. So I hope that at least that they would make some change that top 8 gets invited from the previous major, or top 6, or even top 3, whatever, top 2, just so that there's some advantage of going far in a major. I don't feel like you should be punished playing on the I remember I watched the Secret Liquid final from the last major, and then they had to play the qualifier against each other a couple of days later, and it's kind of, to me, it's kind of absurd. So I hope they make they go back and invite some top teams from the previous major at least.
Yeah. Would it be nicer to have more tournaments? Because at the moment it's quite light. We've only got 5 big tournaments in the year.
I would say it's been fine this year for us. I would say there's a decent amount of tournaments that you can join outside of the majors and the minors. And also I think even though you're a team that's going to the majors, you have to consider that there's also minors for other teams. Yeah. So you can't really put in tournaments that are on both the minor and the major, and then there's both minor and major qualifiers. So those take up a lot because they're separated. I think this year's been fine, especially because there's been 2 ESL tournaments that kind of filled in the gaps, and I think this year's been fine. We would probably not go to any more tournaments, even if there were more, I would say.
You mentioned earlier that there wasn't huge amount of pressure this season because you'd kind of qualified from the start. Do you feel still a pressure to perform at these tournaments? Because if there's only 5 and your money has to come from somewhere.
Oh, I mean, sure, but at least for me, it depends on how you look. It's a lot of individual philosophy, I guess. For me, I kind of don't want to put too much pressure on myself. I don't want to put pressure on my team to perform at tournaments. So every tournament I go to now, I will do my best, and I will hope that we're good enough to be winning the tournament. But I'm not going to go in and expect us to win. I think it's unrealistic in this scene, at least, to be going into a major and be we're gonna win this major. Yeah. You might go into the major and have a feeling that you're the best team there, but I think expecting to win it's gonna be hard for you, because you're gonna put yourself under a lot of pressure.
So you find it a little boring then, if you're not?
No, I find it very relaxed. This is something that I changed for myself after our roster changed last year. Because we went into the TI qualifiers, I didn't really expect to go to TI. Oh, really? After we changed after we changed roster, I was okay, we might have just sacked our TI hope, because it was pretty late on and we had to it's pretty shaky. So we made it to TI, and when we made it there, I felt like it was like a huge relief for me because it felt like the end of the season, sort of. Like I felt like, okay, the entire year built up to this TI qualifier, and then we made it, and then the TI was kind of just a bonus for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and I felt like this TI was probably the one where I played the best. So I just kind of took that and like adapted it into my philosophy or whatever you want to call it. So just having like no expectations and just doing your best and seeing how far it can take you. This is working out for me.
So with this TI, you haven't qualified so early. Is it therefore the end of the season now, the end of the TI?
I mean, yeah. Now this year, obviously, it's not going to be a qualifier. That's gonna.
Yeah.
It's going to be like TI is going to be. But the way I see it, you should still look at it like every tournament is like it's like part of the journey, you know. And I think you have to enjoy every tournament and like the games, because if you just look at them as a step towards something bigger, then there's no, you go into the only thing you're looking forward to is like a best of 5 TI final, you know, and then once you get there, it's like the peak of the year. It's going to be so much pressure on yourself, and you're definitely going to feel it in the game if that's how you put it. So I think for me, you just have to enjoy every game and then see how it goes, and then if you do your best and it takes you to TI final, and if you win the TI final, then it's great, but if it doesn't, then at least you did your best.
Yeah. Do you think TI is too big? A lot of people have told me the prize pool is too big and it should be redistributed across the year.
No, I think it's fine. I think one thing I was considering is if it's too frequent, like if it's like if it shouldn't be every year, if it should be separated like every second year, every fourth year, like other sports are doing, something like that, and then maybe you have a smaller thing every second year, some different like distribution. But I mean, at this point, most pro players know what to expect. Like it's like their lives. They know that every year there's going to be this huge tournament, and now it's like. I would say the majors that came in 2015, the Frankfurt major, were like the only, like that was like the start to at least distributing a little bit more throughout the year. Before that, there was no tournaments with like 1 million and above. So I think the majors have helped a lot since 2015. I think it was. Yeah, it was. So yeah, I don't know if you could change it so it's like every second year or something like that, or you could take some of the prize pool. But the way it works now, I think it's hard for Valve to change because it's like. What's it called? The prize pool is like given by fans. Yeah. So it's like hard to say, oh, we're gonna just take half of this and then we put it in the prize pool for the next year. You know, I can't really do that. So I don't know.
I mean, you could, but people might find it annoying.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't mind it, but I don't really care for it. Like I don't care about it. I think this system is fine, and I would be okay with the change as well.
If Valve didn't change anything for next year, and this was the season the system we went into next year, would that be a disappointment for you, or would you be like, actually, this is still pretty good?
No, I would say it's still pretty good. Yeah.
One of the things that has been brought up to me a lot is the lack of communication from Valve on certain issues, so player conduct and also region stuff. Is that something that you find affects you in the way that you think and act?
No, I don't think so. I think for us, in terms of player conduct, I think we're one of the teams that have the most focus on it. We had people around us that have been trying to teach this to us since we joined the team, basically. So I feel like we're one of the more trained teams, like media trained teams, and like actually behaving well, so fans get like an impression that we're not like you don't do stuff that's inappropriate. I mean, some of us are still not the nicest guys, but we're not being like complete idiots. So I think for us it's like not something that we really care too much about, because we already have that element in our what do you call it, like our organization. Like we don't want our players to be going around and being like idiots. So
So for you, if you're in a top team, it doesn't really matter what Valve say, because you're going to abide by a high standard of conduct anyway.
Some teams.
For some teams it matters, but if you're an EG and you've got such a great manager and you've got
if you have a team around you that puts like a focus on it and makes sure that it's like a thing that you work on, then I think it's not a big deal. But most teams don't have it like this. I think it's really not something that most teams have. I think from what I know at least is that we only had it because our previous manager was like really focused on it, so it just kind of became daily thing for us that we would be better people. So I don't think it's every team, but I think it should be. Like it should be something like players need to realize that they're not just playing games privately, you know. It's like they have a lot of fans and they're like in the public. So it's just something that's like going to happen over time, I think.
If there were to be one change for next year, what would you make?
In terms of what?
In the way DPC works.
I would probably change the qualifiers. That's probably the biggest thing for like quality of life for players, because it's rough to go straight from a tournament. You have to go to the region you play in, and then you have, it's kind of rough for players. I think that's probably I think most players will say the same, from what I heard. Especially the teams that made it to like top 2. Those teams, they're like really tired of going home and having to play qualifiers. So I would say that would be the biggest quality of life improvement for players.
Okay, I think that's all I've got for you. So thanks a lot for coming on. It's been really nice to talk to you.